Hello, everybody. Today, I want to do the completion of the Portland-Vancouver metropolitan area metro network concept that I have. Though I did say in this video that that was the total network that was at the time. And though I still would prefer it to be that rather than this, with these two lines, I figured with the amount of comments that I did get on that video that was insisting that actually it should not be anything but a metro line and not a basically local rail line, which I definitely don't agree with, I figured I'd still end up putting these two into it as well. Because, of course, it's always good to have as many options as possible and available in mass transit. So, I'm going to review these two different lines that I conceived. So, of course, as you can see on your screen, these are the two. It's going to be focused mainly on Southeast Portland area. And if you want to see the full metro network, just make sure you pop onto that other video, because you'll even be able to see it fully represented across the entire metro area. Let's start with the Powell Metro, is what I decided to call it, because of course it's following Powell Boulevard the entire way, also known, by the way, as US 26 or Sunset Highway, because it is literally the same exact road slash highway slash freeway, because it can't make up their fucking mind. Anyway, so as always, we have a news station here in downtown Freddie Brown. Downtown Gresham. I almost forgot Gresham's name. That's unusual, but all right. And I think actually the last max station is really close by, right? Yeah, because this is Gresham Central TC. This is the max station. So it's very close by, but it's not, of course, directly in line, because I figured it would be better to have a separate station further into the main developed core, at least over here. And then, because it's a metro, it has even less stops than the max line does. And we skip all the way until we're over here, because this is part of this Springwater corridor. As you can see, there's a path that goes through here. We're going to stop there because there's also accessibility down into these areas that are rapidly expanding and developing, unfortunately, towards Happy Valley and everything like that. And so that allows better accessibility to these neighborhoods in this vicinity. The next stop would be directly outside of Powell Butte, because though it's very close to this one, I mean, I've been there just the once in February of last year, 2024, and I gotta say, it genuinely stunned me how incredible the views from the top of Powell Butte are. It was not what I expected in the slightest. And of course, it's an important area. And of course, it's on an important corridor and cross section here as well. So naturally, I wanted to make sure I put one there. Then, of course, we skip on all the way over to 205. I-205. Because though this isn't technically Lentz, because obviously Lentz is here, it's basically Lentz. And again, Powell Boulevard in this area is a very important corridor. This is Kelly Butte. And then the next stop would be over here at Foster and Powell. And then we would have another stop over here. And this is this new development. I can't remember what the hell it's called. It's apartment complex. And they're slowly starting to upscale this area. And by upscale, I mean upzone it so that it's increasing density. So infill, which is good. This is therefore a good spot for it as well. And then, of course, we have a stop right here at, I can't remember what this is. I think it's like 13th and Powell or something like that. And it's technically directly adjacent from here, which is Clinton and I can't remember the other one. And then, of course, across the way over here, I would probably seek to add a stop as close as that is by, because obviously this is, I mean, you look at it, it's self-explanatory why they need to stop there. I also feel like there needs to be one here, because the PDX Diamond Project successfully bought this land. So they own the land from here, this edge here of the port that is defunct. They own this land up through to the road that is Talikium Crossing. They own all of this land now, because they're going to put the baseball stadium somewhere on it. And I think from what I read and saw, they're going to put the baseball stadium and develop it here, even though logically they should probably have it up here. And then that way it's also right up against the transit center already. The streetcar, buses, and of course Yeah, I believe it's the green and the orange line that go over to Leakium Crossing. So this is actually a really good hub already. And then adding this metro station here adds yet another transit option. So putting the stadium right in the center of this is incredibly, I feel, imperative and intelligent. So, in my mind, that this is the most logical place they should be putting the stadium, not here. And then, of course, it ends at the downtown Portland metro station. Those are the different stops. Now, technically, there was multiple different concepts I had about that was the wrong one, about the stops that we could have on this line, because obviously some of these are really close together. So like an example, I actually did remove supposedly the Kelly Butte line, even though, or the stop, even though we already saw that this is Kelly Butte. So, oh, right. So this was an option too, is putting it here, because again, they're, as you can see, they're infilling, they're developing it more, they're densifying this region and area, which is good. So because of the density in this region, and again, being a major thoroughfare crossing, you could reason to put one there, but then it becomes more like a max line and rather, or even a BRT, rather than an actual metro line. There's a decent space between this one, but then there's also these two. So you could reasonably say none of this, and then none of this, no South Gresham. Or you could reason to have the South Gresham line, even though it's our stop, where being as close as it is to there, so that this region still has connectivity and options, and so does this area. And then get rid of the Powell one, Powell Butte station, because people might reason, okay, why the heck do you have a station at a park? And it's somewhat understandable that people would think that's stupid. Like, look at the lack of development in this area to the south. Sure, but at the same time, so as a compromise, I feel like this is actually probably the better spot to keep one. So you have those two stops gone, and that puts some good space between the rest of the stops, rather than not. Now, of course, we're going to move on from the Powell Metro to the Southeast Express. This is taking on the Springwater Corridor Trail, and then it's just following it pretty much the entire way to the Willamette River, where it then crosses it. So this is something that I know is going to piss a lot of people off, probably especially the bicyclists, where they'd say absolutely fuck not. So of course it would share the same station in downtown Gresham as the with the Powell Metro, and then of course it would have another one also, again, South Gresham is what I called it. So on the Springwater Corridor, as it swaps over to it, you put it there, because then these people on these roads have the ability from the south end to, of course, access it. Which is, again, I feel like very reasonable and a good idea to give them that option rather than just skip them outright and force them to go to one of the next closest stations. So naturally, we have that. It's going to follow the Springwater Corridor around the south end of Powell Butte. And then, of course, it would have a stop right here, because this is as central as you're going to get between that stop and, of course, the next stop over here. So this is, I believe, 122nd, I believe, is what this is. So 122nd in Springwater Corridor. And then, of course, we have the next stop, which would skip over to here, because this is one of the main routes connecting Sunnyside and all that, along with Lentz, because Lentz is right here. And since we don't have any of these metros stopping at Lentz in particular, it's better to have a stop, you know, your set of stops as close by as possible, so that people don't have to walk, bike, wheelchair, or otherwise they can't really rationalize driving even in order to get there. Hell, they could technically take a single max train ride, a single stop ride from literally Lentz Station directly down to this station, whichever one that's considered, and then just walk up and over to here. The idea for this spot, of course, and being on the Springwater Corridor, is that you would rationalize trying to give them another path or trail. Looks like there's already a path here too. To be able to connect them directly through this property, this sliver, to give them direct access to the station, rather than them having to go around Charlie's Barn to access it. And you could almost rationalize putting a stop here, but I didn't, of course. I wanted to make sure they were perfectly spaced, as well as spaced as possible. So naturally, this is the next stop here. And I'm going to have to start putting this bar on the side so I can just read what locations each are. So I was right. It was 122nd. I did remember that correctly. Then we had 92nd and Flavel. So that was what this is. And then we have Bell and Johnson Creek Boulevard, which is right here, of course. And this, if you kind of look at it, it's probably the best next stop anyway. This one is Darlington, is what I decided to call it, because there's too many cross streets, so I figured to just call it the neighborhood name, and that's the closest neighborhood. The next one is McLaughlin Springwater. This one is not even called McLaughlin Springwater, this Max station. I can't remember the park and ride. I can't remember what it's called. It's a different street. I think it's this one, whatever that one is. So you can see this path here that connects to the Springwater corridor directly and multiple spots. So that is, again, and also to McLaughlin as well. So I figured this is a perfect spot for that, because then it's a quick jaunt up to the Orange Line Max station. Then, of course, we're going to cross the river. Whee! Into Lake Oswego. So Lake Oswego would have a station there. I also thought you could put a station over here, because that's truly where like the square is and the actual more redeveloped part of downtown is and everything. Historic part, you're actually on the lake, which would be beautiful. But I figured this is more central, so screw it. Even though it's not central to the population base, admittedly, because that would be obviously either west or, of course, further south. But shh, you didn't hear anything. I also thought about putting a station, obviously, over here on the east side, probably here or here, which, again, you could rationalize, makes perfect sense. But then it would be a little close to this station, which you think, this sucks. But there is already a station located here for the IC and ICE lines. One of them is an IC. You will be able to see that in the next transit/urbanist video I have out for the Oregon, what I'm calling the Oregon Lynx, like an actual cat, rather than, because it sounds better than obviously saying links, and it's literally just like, oh yeah, because it links people up. Duh. So it's the regional intercity and intercity express, so ICE rail concept for Oregon. So there will be a stop here already, and therefore they will auto connect to each other in the first place. And then that will allow you to be able to connect through here. And obviously, with my bus line concepts, there's already a transit center I've proposed in this area, somewhere in here. I think it was literally right here, but of course they're already redeveloping that even more, it looks like, potentially, although this actually looks pretty much the same as it did before. A transit center, a proper transit center for Tualatin, rather than stupid fucking parking right up here. So there's a transit center there. Again, I highly recommend you go check out that video. In fact, both of them. There's two different videos, two parts basically to the bus West Side bus expansion concept I have. But yeah, so this will basically connect you directly up with these bus lines that cross through here, and they will actually give you a direct access to this transit center, so you don't really have to worry about a damned thing about connectivity. You're actually still pretty much directly on top of each other. Then, of course, viaducts all the way through, and I believe literally the next station is just simply Sherwood, which also, again, goes into the next video, which is going to be the regional IC and ICE line concepts for Oregon. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And also, if you actually would agree with a lot of people who were commenting that this should be a metro line, this one in particular right here, rather than not. I will admit, though, that these two came about because I hemmed and hawed and didn't know how the hell you could logistically get through all this developed area and reasonably get through here and then follow like the 99 I-5 corridor down through the Tiger Triangle. I couldn't rationalize it. And you could also follow the TV highway corridor, technically, to like downtown Hillsborough and connect up to the what I would actually think you should do with Block 67, which is apparently what it's called, rather than what they're, holy mother of puberty, rather than what they're going to do with it, which is not dense enough at all, especially for the downtown core of Hillsborough. Like, oh, we're adding much need density. 6 stories. Congratulations, you're going 1 story above the normal. Even if you went 8 stories, that's not enough. They should do at least 10 stories, if not upwards of 15. This is Block 67. This is the main hospital complex, and also Pacific University's Hillsborough campus, I guess it is. So, in, you know, Virginia Garcia and all these other great, huge hub places in here, and the main employers of Hillsborough. So why not, since Washington is already there, why not put the transit center in here? And obviously, this is such a big plot of land, no shit, you're not going to make the entire thing a transit center. But the idea is that you'd put the transit center, hopefully, under one of the buildings, at least under one of the parts of the buildings, and connect it up in the middle. Or you could literally base it around the transit center and have the transit center literally be like this center section here. There is direct connectivity for the transit center to be occupying the center space. And then that way they have direct connectivity to go in and out of these side streets that they'd have to enter through. Well, bam. You can then build your developments around here. Or, again, because the Max Station is there, all you'd have to do as well is make either a corner of it become its own transit center, or better yet, like I said, put it underneath the building. So that way the train station is even closer, and you just have to go boop, boop, and then boom, you're under the building, and you have a transit center down there. And then make it expansive enough to where maybe you don't have the lines now, but again, with say the, I don't know, comprehensive expansion of West Side bus network, like I have in that video I've mentioned, which I highly recommend you check out, I look at the whole concept, it would just be perfection to have it there. So that way, in extra space, so that way you can have those new lines and any potential future new lines that end up being built, or a community transit network gets built out and created. And so then that way they have spots and stalls to stop at. But also you would have spaces for white CTA. So Yamhill County Transit. You also would have space for TCTD, Tillamook County Transit. And of course, you'd also have space for CC Rider, being of course Columbia County Transit. That's a sidetrack, and yeah, but my point for mentioning it is, again, that you could rationalize that having one going down the TV highway corridor would make a lot of sense too. Boom. And connect it up. So basically do this probably, and then like this. And connect up that way. But because there wasn't really any rational way to be able to pull that off, and same with going just across the way here, and then going down the I-5, what do you call it, corridor, and then connecting up here. It just doesn't, it didn't really work. You could pull it off, I'm sure, but it would suck, and it would be way more expensive and unrealistic. So that's why I compromised on building these two instead. So Powell gets their own metro, and then of course you have the Southeast Express that connects you up to eventually to Sherwood via Lake Oswego to Walton and obviously South Portland. All right, well, that's that for today. Thank you for watching, and like I said, let me know your concepts and your ideas, and even how you would change this up in the comments below. I would actually genuinely like to see how that works and what goes through your mind for these different concepts. Outside of that, once again, thank you for watching, and hope to see you whenever my next video might be.